All right, so I'm Luis from Aragon. For the guys that don't know about what Aragon is and the people here that are curious to know, basically Aragon is a project to empower freedom by creating decentralized governance. And decentralized governance, it can seem very abstract, but particularly you can think of decentralized organizations as a first step towards creating tools for decentralized governance. So what we're doing right now is, decentralized organizations can really solve a lot of problems, but before getting there, we need to first kind of solve our own problems. And there are a lot of problems for crypto projects right now in terms of governance. Like basically everyone has governance on the roadmap, and it's like that black box. And it will work out, governance is just like the keyword itself, which sounds very powerful, but then we haven't really experimented so much with it. So what we're doing is we have this program called Aragon Labs, and basically what we're doing is we are taking these awesome projects here and others and just kind of trying out small experiments with their governance and their communities. Right now, we are still not doing anything live because we just had like our testnet release like a month ago. But we want to try this out first with these projects, these community-driven projects that are here, these crypto projects, and then we can move on to other kind of users. And eventually we will reach the user that is like, the 12-year-old kid in Venezuela who wants to interact with other people in the world. So now it's demo time. I know doing demos is a very bad idea. And I want to pray to the gods of Rinkeby, the POA validators, the gods of Infura, and the gods of MetaMask. So hopefully everything works out. What we're going to do here is we're going to create a new organization, a DAO. And so this is the Aragon interface. We're going to do it in Rinkeby. So what you see here is two different templates. The idea is that people will be able to create different templates, to code them. It's actually very easy. And these templates, what they do is they set how apps inside the organization interact with each other. So you can create a democracy template, a multi-sig template, an NGO template. In the future, you could even imagine a Delaware template that automatically set up tax reporting for you and all of that. Or you can create just a crypto project template and just have tokens that you can give out to your community for them to vote on things. So right now, we are going to go with democracy because people like democracy. And so we are going to give it a name. It can be EdCon, whatever. You can actually, if you go to app.aragon.one and type the name of the organization there, you can basically interact with it. So we're going to move forward and configure this DAO. So this is a democracy, so it has different parameters regarding the voting, how much does the vote last, how much quorum does it need to pass. So we're going to configure those parameters with I don't know, 10, 10, and 1 hour or something like that. Or whatever Jorge considers good. And then we're going to create a token. And this token is going to be a token which will let people vote on the organization. So it can be the EdCon token. And then we're going to click next. And we are going to pray to the MetaMask gods. And now to the Rinkeby gods. After this, if everything works out, we'll have a decentralized autonomous organization. I want to convey that experimentation in DAOs was very stopped after the DAO hack, and it kind of took a long time for people to realize, okay, the DAO was just a problem with software, but not with the concept of DAO themselves. So basically what is happening here is we are deploying an entire DAO with apps included. You're going to see later, but there is a token manager app to create tokens, to assign tokens to different people. There is a voting app to create votes. It's a very simple democracy application. And there is also a finance app, which lets you control the balances and the tokens in your decentralized organization. And how this is configured, and we will see if the gods of Ethereum listen to our praise, we will see, yeah, it works. So what we will see is that basically, with this template we have used, it's a very basic template. You will be able, if you're a token holder, you will be able to open votes for things, such as, for example, withdrawing funds from the DAO or stuff like that, or creating new tokens. And if the voting passes, we will see that the action executed. I think this is super powerful, being able to create these kind of organizations in 30 seconds or whatever time it was for us. Literally, doing these kind of things in the real world takes months, or the best of cases, weeks or at least days, but in some places in the world, they cannot do it because the governments are corrupt, and it's just months and months. In my case, like when I was 16, I wanted to create my first company, and in Spain, it was illegal. You have to spin around 18 times around the sun, so be like 18 or older in order to create this, and I consider that censorship. So let's try this out. Let's see if it works. It's doing the different apps, which I hope yeah, it worked. So this is a fully working, decentralized, autonomous organization. We're going to play with it a little bit. As I said, if you go to app.aragon.1 and type edcon, you will be able to see this organization and interact with it too. If you want some tokens to vote, you can tweet at our social channels, and afterwards we'll airdrop some tokens to people here. So we're going to try to see the token manager, who has tokens right now. We're trying to sign tokens to someone. So right now we are the dictators of it. We are the only token holders. But we are going to try to assign tokens to other address, or our same address, because we really like tokens, right? So we are, 9 tokens or whatever, and then we're going to click assign tokens. And this is where the magic really kicks in. So there are 2 things happening here. The first one is when you interact with Ethereum, we are familiar with these huge X payloads that are super tricky to understand, and no user really understands them. So they are just signing stuff without really knowing what they are signing. So we have created something called Rad Spec, which is a safe alternative to Ethereum's Rad Spec, which basically lets you describe Ethereum transactions in smart contracts in a way that is understandable for the user. So as you can see there, we're telling the user, if you do this, if you sign this payload, the action that is going to be triggered is that we're going to mint new tokens for that address there. That's pretty user-friendly, and also it's a security improvement over just signing whatever hex payload you have. And we want to see the standard adopted by other providers and wallets and stuff like that, because I think it's very powerful. And then the second thing that is happening is if you have an organization, you may not have direct permission to do certain things. For example, you don't want your token holders to be withdrawing funds directly from your DAO. You want some governance process. And so here, what we are doing, we call it transaction pathing, is we are saying, okay, you are a token holder in this DAO, you don't have permission to withdraw money directly, but you do have permission to open a voting in the voting app, and that voting app has permission to finally withdraw funds. So we're telling the user, hey, open a voting, and then your intent will be satisfied if the voting passes. And with this structure, we can create super complex governance models. This is just a simple example. So we're going to send a transaction and pray again. As you guys have seen, it is pretty user-friendly. We have built our own UI toolkit, which at the moment is like everything that you see here. But what we want to do is we want to actually create a UI toolkit that is very usable for dApp developers. So something that has stuff like optimistic UI built in, and also, as I said, these kind of very readable Ethereum transactions to see what you are really doing. So now we're going to go to the voting app, see if Rinkeby likes us, and loads the voting here. So the idea with voting is that right now it's a very simple app, but you can have different governance mechanisms. You can swap it out for a quadratic voting app, or for any other kind of voting, or even not voting, but even things like foodarchy or stuff like that. So Rinkeby gods are not really liking us. So I guess we can skip to finance directly, because I think it's a pretty cool app. So finance is basically like the vault of the organization where the funds are. So right now you can see some test tokens there in the testnet. We can request tokens, like an airdrop of test tokens. Basically, I think finance is very important, because we are seeing these crypto projects and that have a lot of funds, and these funds kind of were raised in the first place for the crypto network itself, not for the team behind it. So I think it's very important that we slowly transition to these communities having access over the funds. So this is the, going back to voting, this is the voting. We can view it, we can vote. As you see, it's very user-friendly. You see what the voting is doing. We automatically voted when we created the proposal. It's really easy, and it passed. So now we can see that we have 9 more tokens in the Token Manager app. Going back to finance, Basically, those are just test tokens, don't really trust it. But I think it's very powerful for transparency. Like right now, the closest we have in our case is we have this website called transparency.aragon.one, in which you can see how we are spending money. But this is another level. This is actually, because in transparency.aragon.one, it's just like a way of documenting how do we spend money for our multisig. But this, you can actually automate a lot of things. You can actually even give token holders power to start withdrawing and using funds in a very progressive way. Like you can say, okay, you guys can withdraw up to 1 Ether per month using, or you can do thresholds in general, right? Yeah, we have BCC, we have a lot of BCC. Very nice. And you can see here all the, all the left here, and you can also like transfer tokens. And if we transfer tokens, it will be the same thing as earlier. You will have to go through voting. And this is very powerful because you can set, as I said, thresholds. You can start saying to your community, okay, you will be able to have access to 1 Ether per month, and then 10, and then 100, and try out new governance models for that. And I want to talk a little bit about permissions in the App Center, but for doing that, I want to switch back to the slides. So how we build this thing, right? Basically, what we are doing is we have this Aragon app, which is like the list of apps that you saw, and like the notifications and the signer view, which shows you what you are signing. But then developers, third-party developers, can create their own apps, and they can do so by creating, this UI using our toolkit or any other web toolkit, and also they can have what we call background scripts, which are basically scripts that execute in the background using a web worker. And what it does is it continuously fetches information about the app and the state that it has on the blockchain. So when you want to access the app, it's actually like almost loaded in terms of like data from the blockchain. And also apart from that, you can write your own smart contracts that go alongside the UI itself. So we have built a package manager, which itself is a DAO, and what it does is it allows you to publish new versions of both front-end and smart contracts of apps, and you can actually have any governance mechanism behind this package manager, because right now it's just like, GitHub, you create a release, whatever. That's a very strong point of centralization. So what we are doing is we are trying to, right now it's sort of centralized, like the package manager is controlled by us, but in the future it may be controlled by the community, and therefore you have some community veto on the versions you publish, which I think it's very important. So, next. Obviously this is a lot of things to build by ourselves, so we have a grants program. It's called Aragon Nest, we are doing with Placeholder, and so we are announcing the first batch of grantees pretty soon, and I'm super excited about that. Some examples, a decentralized Git repo controlled by a DAO, or what I'm going to show now, which is a way to sign transactions in your operating system that supports software wallets, or even Ledger or Trezor today. So this sits at your operating system, Mac, Linux, whatever, and it allows you to interact with Web3, no matter if you are accessing it from Electron or from a dApp or from a browser. So it's pretty cool, and it's working today. We want to make Aragon a movement. Right now, it's pretty much centralized in the foundation, but what we are doing is we are splitting ourselves from the foundation. So the idea is that people and more teams will be able to work on the core Aragon infrastructure, because we cannot build this ourselves. Like, it's a huge stack. So we're trying to stay small and have multiple teams with diverse views to work on the core Aragon protocol and the core community. So what we want to do, finally, is to experiment with governance at the speed of software, because for the first time in history, we can experiment past democracy, or we can experiment past dictatorship. We can create new governance models that are much more powerful. So that's possible thanks to decentralized organizations. Finally, I want to invite everyone to check out our website and try out the alpha. We are going to the mainnet soon. So thanks a lot for everyone for being here.